Welcome to Wichita Liberty TV with Bob Weeks.
Hello, I'm Bob Weeks for Wichita Liberty TV, your weekly source for news, analysis, and commentary about Wichita and Kansas government and politics. We're broadcast on KGPT, channel 26.1, and it's also on its companion website, kgpt26.com. Some of you may know me from my blog, The Voice for Liberty, at wichitaliberty.org. There, the motto is individual liberty, limited government, and free markets in Wichita and Kansas. So I cover things that may not be covered by the Wichita Eagle or other television stations or radio. Or, if we do cover the same news, I'll do it from the perspective of economic freedom, limited government, and individual liberty, because these are the things that are important, and these are the things that are so often under attack by our governments, be it federal, state, and local. So please visit wichitaliberty.org. You can subscribe to the email newsletter, and if you'd like to contact me, you can find my email address and telephone there, or it's pretty easy to remember, bob.weeks@gmail.com. Well, let's take a look back at some of the important stories that I covered during the year 2013 that has just flown by, it seems like. In January, there was an important story. Candidates for the Wichita City Council filed campaign finance reports, and the filings illustrated the need for campaign finance reform in Wichita and Kansas. Two incumbent city council members, both who indicated their intent to run in the spring elections, they received campaign contributions in 2012 from two sources. One source was a group of principals and executives of Key Construction, and another group was people associated with movie theater owner Bill Warren. The incumbent candidates receiving these contributions were James Clendenin, he's in District 3, that's Southeast and South Wichita, and Levada Williams, whose district is District 1, which is Northeast Wichita. And except for $1.57 in unitemized contributions to Clendenin, these two groups accounted for all the contributions received by these two incumbents in that year. Now, as the election grew nearer, other parties contributed to these candidates, but for 1 year, only two groups of people made contributions to these candidates. Well, what about these groups? Do they have an extraordinarily keen interest in Wichita city government that's not shared by everyone else? Well, yes, they do, and it's not benevolent. Both have benefited from the cronyism of the Wichita City Council, in particular council members Williams and Clendenin. Now, we've covered the benefits these parties have received in the past, such as overpriced no-bid contracts and interest-free loans made to prop up an earlier failing loan from taxpayers. We need laws in Wichita and Kansas like some states and cities have. These are generally called pay-to-play laws, and they can be very simple, such as elected officials can't vote on matters that enrich their significant campaign contributors. It could be that easy. And here's something related that seems inconsequential, but is really important, and that's the timing of our city council and school board elections. Currently, these elections are held in the spring of odd-numbered years, and these elections are also nonpartisan, meaning that candidates don't run as members of a political party. Well, I was asked to testify before a committee of the Kansas Senate this year. In preparation, I did some research, and I found that for elections in Sedgwick County, voter turnout in spring elections is much lower than in the fall elections. Since 2000, turnout for fall elections, both primary and general, has been about 44%. And over the same period, spring election turnout has been only 18%. Other research I found confirmed that this pattern is common across the country. So you may be asking, is this a problem? Well, political scientist Sarah Anzia has done the research, and she wrote this in her research paper. She wrote, when an election is separated from other elections that attract higher turnout, many eligible voters abstain, but interest group members that have a large stake in the election outcome turn out at high rates regardless of the increase in the cost of voting. Moreover, interest groups' efforts to strategically mobilize supportive voters has a greater impact on election outcomes when overall turnout is low. Consequently, the electoral influence of interest groups is greater in off-cycle elections rather than in on-cycle elections, and as a result, the policy made by officials elected in off-cycle elections should be more favorable to dominant interest groups than policy made by officials elected in on-cycle elections. So, special interest groups benefit from these low turnout spring elections. And so do you remember the first story I reported on today, where campaign contributions for 2 Wichita City Council members came from only 2 sources? Well, that's an illustration of special interest groups in action, and it's harmful to our city and its economy. Well, what happened to the bill I testified on that would move the elections to the fall? Well, there was much opposition by cities and school boards and the special interest groups that benefit from these low turnout off-cycle election. As a result, the bill went nowhere. I hope that it is revived this year for another attempt, as we do need to reform this area of our election law.
You're watching Wichita Liberty TV.
Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks. In April of this year, Susan Estes of Americans for Prosperity testified at a meeting of the Wichita City Council. She cited a section of the Wichita City Code that says council members shall refrain from making decisions involving, amongst other things, friends and business associates. Here's how the mayor responded.
The thing is that it's about integrity, and the total amount that you actually see that by law that council members can actually receive. I measure that as if someone thinks that I'm going to turn around and violate my integrity and my values, the maximum amount of $500, they're sadly mistaken. Now, if you as an individual, if that's a choice that you make and that's the dollar figure that you put on your own, then that's your business. And you're the person that has to go to bed and go to sleep at night. But there are a lot of individuals that play golf and spend time with individuals. They hang out, they drink, they go on various different social events together, and no one ever know anything about it, and they never and have no idea it happened. What you're basing your information on is basically what's been disclosed on Mr. Weeks' website. And for his information, I think he needs to get it correct. I've never been to the Caribbean. And most people ask me, hey, can't he tell that that's Lake Texoma? So I start questioning those types of things. The point is, I'm not going to sell my integrity and my moral values. Not for it's not for sale. It's not for sale to a friend of mine. It's not for sale for a friend of mine. It's not for sale for a family member. It's not for sale to anybody, because that's the only, my philosophy, and these councilmen will tell you, my philosophy is that one, that's the only thing that I have. You can strip me of every single thing. You can strip me of my dignity, and you can lie on me if you choose to, but for me, I'm going to keep that, and I am never going to violate it. It's not for sale. It's not for giving it to anyone. So I understand what you're saying, but the exact same thing in the company that you were, the organization you represent, and many others, we all have certain opinions about each other, and I certainly have mine about the organizations that you have. And me as an elected official, I have an obligation to the citizens of this community, and not only that, but to my family, because when those things are actually being said, or they're inaccurate, or somebody spread some type of crazy, outlandish lie, because then my family get a chance to hear that type of stuff. My grandchildren get a chance to hear it. So, but they know that, hey, their grandfather or their father is not that way. So I take, when you make comments like that and try to insinuate that I'm going to sell my integrity for a friend or for somebody that I may go fishing with, you are sadly mistaken. And if you think that I'm going to sit by, and if you think that I'm going to allow you to violate that, I've been calm and I've been patient and I've been tolerant. and allowed individuals to say certain things that were not true, at some point in time you have to do a gut check. You have to say, I'm going to make a stance, and I'm not going to allow this anymore. Now, I know what my attorney recommends, but I have the same right as a citizen, and I intend to start exercising some of those rights. Because, as I said, we're talking about my integrity, we're talking about my values, and we're talking about individuals that think that they can just say whatever they want to say. And part of that is the problem we're having in America and certainly at the state level. So I think it's important that you hear this, because you're trying to subtly make these allegations, and I'm making sure that I get you straight on what my position is on it.
My bottom line message is that you guys have a responsibility to avoid an appearance of an impropriety according to the standards set by the League of Kansas Municipalities. And your own code says you should not be voting or making decisions that relate to the financial interest of your friends. I do believe that you are a person of integrity, and I'm calling on you to use that integrity to recuse yourself from voting on this issue.
Well, first we see an example of how so often our mayor is misinformed. He cited a photograph of him fishing with the president of Key Construction that appeared on my site, The Voice for Liberty, and it also appeared in other publications, but I never made a statement regarding the location of the photograph. Someone else did that. But that's really not important. What is important is the public policy aspect. The mayor was about to vote to extend a financial benefit to someone who is obviously a friend and also a major campaign contributor to him and many other council members. And the city has a statute that says, don't vote on things like this. The language is clear and unambiguous, but we have a city attorney who says it's only advisory, and that council members are not bound by this law that many of them, including Mayor Carl Brewer, voted for in 2008. Well, here's something else that's related. In 2008, the Wichita City Council approved a low-interest and no-interest loan to movie theater owner Bill Warren and his partners. The Wichita Eagle said this loan could cost taxpayers as much as $1.2 million. That loan was to prop up a failing investment taxpayers had made a few years earlier that benefited Warren and his partners. And Warren's theaters have received other financial benefits from the city under Brewer's leadership, too. And then, and I'm not making this up, when Brewer started manufacturing and selling barbecue sauce, it was sold at Warren's movie theaters. Well, remember the city code I cited. Council members shall refrain from making decisions involving friends and business associates. So the mayor sells his wares at a man's business and then continues to vote to give financial benefits to that person. That seems to be in violation of that city statute. Well, except for our city attorney that says that law doesn't really mean what it seems to say. But people recognize cronyism and wrongdoing when they see it, and what the mayor and other city council members do is wrong. Well, in the city council meeting we saw, the mayor lashed out at Susan Estes and others for impugning his integrity, saying the accusations are harmful to his family. Well, here's an idea, mayor and council members. Act with integrity. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks. Well, there was other fallout from this city council meeting last April. Wichita ABC affiliate Cake Television ran a news story stemming from this incident, and both Susan Estes and I appeared and were critical of Wichita Mayor Carl Brewer. But reporter Jared Cerullo wasn't able to interview Brewer to get his reaction to his critics. The mayor simply refused to talk to Cerullo. And not long after that, when speaking to the Wichita Pachyderm Club, Cake News anchor Jeff Herndon said that Cake has repeatedly tried to get an on-camera interview with Brewer. But the mayor is always busy, Herndon said. He said, they've got him on lockdown. He's not going to answer that. Well, Herndon's recently left Wichita for a television job in Chicago. But when he spoke to the Pachyderms, he was critical of Wichita news media, both television and print, for not covering city government rigorously. He said, "We need more reporters on that city government beat, and not just on the decisions they make. We need to hold them accountable for the decisions, and we don't do that." Well, not long after this happened, Jared Cerullo, the reporter the mayor wouldn't talk to, was fired by Cake TV. The station gave a reason that Cerullo had made a small and inconsequential mistake in a news story, the type of mistakes that are made and corrected all the time. Well, Cerullo has since filed a lawsuit against the station, and at this time that lawsuit is still pending. But you remember in the video that the mayor threatened to sue Susan Estes, that he had talked to his lawyer about this. And now a news reporter who filed a story critical of the mayor was shortly thereafter fired by his station in what I believe was not a coincidence. Well, both of these persons are experienced and have organizations standing behind them, Americans for Prosperity and a television station, although Cake TV didn't stand behind Cerullo for very long. But what about the average person who wants to speak out? When they see the mayor ranting about his integrity and threatening to sue his critics, does this foster civic participation? No, it quashes it. At that same city council meeting in April, there was another development regarding public policy that I think is important. I testified on a matter at that meeting. I advised the city council that an action it was considering was contrary to its stated written policy, and city staff responded that the policy had changed. Well, I felt bad. I thought I'd made a mistake. I should have known what that new policy was. So I asked the city to provide this document, or perhaps tell me when the city council acted to approve this new revised policy, just as it has approved other similar policies. Well, after 2 days of searching, city officials told me that there is no such document that establishes this policy. This new policy was, apparently, made up to fit the situation at hand. Well, this is a huge problem. City officials say Wichita has a transparent, open government. The public-private partnership evaluation criteria for the redevelopment of downtown Wichita states, the business plan recommends public-private partnership criteria that are clear, predictable, and transparent. But in the very first project to be approved under this plan, the city finds itself apparently making policy up on the fly to fit the needs of a group of politically connected developers. Well, that's not economic development. That's cronyism, and this happens all the time. We have a problem in Wichita. Our city and metropolitan area is not performing well on a variety of economic measures, such as job creation. Now, I realize there's been a recession, but Wichita is not doing well compared to other cities that exist in the same national economic environment. So why is Wichita not doing well? Could our economic development policies, which mainly revolve around supporting a single industry to the detriment of others, and supporting the same group of cronies who receive taxpayer benefits year after year, could this be the problem? It's impossible to say. But we would be much better off if the city government and elected officials started to act in a truly transparent and ethical manner. It certainly could not hurt. But Wichita instead is moving in the opposite direction. Instead of embracing free enterprise and capitalism, the city is maneuvering to increase the amount of centralized planning and control. From the formation of a tourism business improvement district to collect higher taxes on hotel guests, to the sustainable communities planning effort, to forcing water users to pay for someone else's low-flush toilet, to the drumbeats for a new sales tax to pay for a multitude of things, all of this and more means that there is more government and less freedom for Wichitans. We have problems both big and small. Let me leave you with an illustration of a small issue that, in its own way, is emblematic of the larger problem. Well, earlier this year, Wichita rolled out what they call Activate Wichita, described as a virtual town hall. Well, you and I would call it a website. And two of the steps in the process, according to the site, are community leaders establish topics and ask for ideas, and then community members add ideas, upload photos, add comments, and support ideas. Well, that sounds like a good idea. But those who participate will find that the system offers voting choices that definitely influence responses in one direction. And whether this means the data gathered by the system is meaningful and relevant is not known, but its utility certainly should be questioned. And here's an example. There was a topic, what resources for children would you like to see at your public library? And an idea that someone proposed is increase funding through the Kansas sales or Kansas income tax. Well, users of the site then can use a voting system to express approval or, well, that's the problem with the system. Your choices for voting an idea are love it, like it, it's okay, or neutral. That's it. There's no voting option for expressing disagreement or disapproval with an idea. Neutral is as much dissent as Wichitans are allowed to express in this system. And then feedback is gathered from systems like this and used as a purportedly scientific and rational basis for civic decision-making. Well, does anyone see a problem with this? I do. But has any city council member or the mayor or any city bureaucrat or any news outlet raised an objection? Has any of them raised a concern? Not that I'm aware of. And when we can't get little things like this right, and when very few people seem to care, I think we're in trouble on the big issues too. Well, thanks for watching this episode of Wichita Liberty TV. Have a happy new year. I'm Bob Weeks.